Today we are going digital with preschoolers, and I'm going to share with you today from the very latest systematic review research, 5 takeaways to improve language and literacy outcomes by using digital media. So I have 5 takeaways that I'm sharing with you today from this latest systematic review research. It is going to be in your show notes. When you look at this research, what I want you to keep in mind is that this is a combination of studies, approximately 59 studies that were quantitative, approximately 30 studies that are qualitative, that are not random control group design studies that have definitive answers. But a lot of this research does have details that matter. And I'm going to dive into those details with you so that we can do digital right and so that we can actually improve language and literacy outcomes through digital means. We want to do this is to build a bridge from the school to home efficiently in what you're working on school. You can use digital media as a means to do that. That is what I do in my SIS membership. It's a wonderful way to build that bridge of this is the theme, these are the ideas, these are the stories that we're focusing on, our music, movement, literacy activities, and speech. And this is the sound we're focusing on this week. I send them Google Slides deck. And with that Google Slides deck, you have educationally rich language, literacy, speech activities that improve phonological awareness skills, that improve storytelling skills, that improve vocabulary. It's all in there and it's supporting what we're covering in our hands-on movement activities in person. So what I'm going to share with you today are 5 takeaways that you want to keep in mind if you want to use digital in your practice too. A little peek onto my back porch and what I do, and it works wonderfully. Every week I have 2 movement activities. These movement activities are based on literacy and music. They're very hands-on and they're task-oriented in nature. They're very fun and they're very meaningful. And within those activities, we focus on the child's speech targets, their language targets, their augmentative communication targets. We embed those into the activities. I want to have this bridge from home to school. When you have 50 children on your caseload from diverse backgrounds, what I do is I send a letter each week. And with that letter, there's a link, and I let them know these are the stories we're focusing on this week. This is the sound that we're focusing on this week. I simply copy and paste it. I send it to BCC, my entire caseload, and it has about 8 different activities in the Google Slides deck. And I tell the parents pick 1 or 2 activity out of this Google Slides deck to support what we're doing in therapy. That is what I do every single week of the school year. And the parents tell me that every child on the caseload, there's something they like. Maybe they like the animated storybooks that we're doing in therapy that week at the end. Maybe they like the songs that we're doing this week that incorporate a lot of movement in them. Maybe they like one of the phonological awareness activities. Maybe they like the storytelling activity. Maybe they like the language activity. Maybe they like a speech activity. There's something for everyone. The parents are able to pick and choose an activity or 2 that works with their child and their child's unique needs. So that is what I do every week. And the reason I do that is the research indicates that when you provide that extra digital support, you're going to improve gains in language and literacy. And that is what this study has found. When we look at this systematic review, they found there's 5 areas that were improved by adding this digital piece to the intervention. Those 5 areas at the preschool level were print knowledge, that knowledge about print, that there's letters, spaces, punctuation marks, what print is used for. Secondly, they found that adding digital also improved alphabet knowledge. Now we're going to talk about that, not alphabet knowledge like this is the letter A and these are things that stand for the letter A, but alphabet knowledge in which the letters are meaningfully interspersed within a story and they're highlighted in a meaningful manner, not in a discrete flashcardy way of teaching. They additionally found that it improves phonological awareness skills, which I focus on every week in my Google Slides deck. And lastly, they found that it improves vocabulary and narrative skills. However, the caveat is it's not giving the child an iPad and saying, go off with the electronic babysitter for an hour and I'll see you in an hour and then we're going to have better outcomes. The caveat is that there must be another person involved in the intervention with the digital. Look at these 5 things. The number one thing is we're never taking the iPad or a computer and sending the child off with it. What we have in the Google Slides deck and what this research has found is that you need an adult mediator or a peer mediator or a turn-taking activity. You need to be using this in the context of a back and forth social interaction. So you're not connecting with a device, you're connecting with each other. The research that they looked at the preschool level, what they found is the interactions with an adult and a child and a child with another child taking turns with adult supervision. Children are taking turns with a digital device in a group setting. Never a child and a digital alone. It's always the digital is added to the social interaction. That is the first takeaway. And that is what this study found when they looked at 89 studies on very young children, pre-elementary age, and use of digital means. You always need to have the adult mediator. So let's go to number 2 takeaway. This is not going to be surprising. Go multimodal. Okay, we have a book on a digital device. Suppose it's something that everyone knows, Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss, right? If it's like a Kindle version, that there's no auditory, there's no highlighting of the text, there's no interaction, no interactive at all done to the story, they found that you didn't get the same gains as if you had, for instance, the book Green Eggs and Ham read, and you had the almost like a karaoke bar, highlighted word that was spoken, and it's a read aloud, and the child is turning the pages. The child's actively participating in the experience. What I'm talking about here is multimodal. Whenever we research any intervention technique, it's almost like challenge creates change. I always tell you that. Also, multimodal creates change. You want to be multimodal, and when you have digital use that is multimodal in the learning experience, that you have the auditory, that you have the visual, that you have the child actively participating in movement, that's when you're going to get greater gains. So we want to be multimodal when we're being digital, just like when we do live therapy. Number 3, it's really important to focus on the interaction. So we don't want to have the child with the parent and the parent say, good job, good boy. We don't want that. We want them to do what they would do in a language interaction. Think about those responsive techniques 101. Now they're calling it following in on the child's interest. That's the latest popular term in the research for years is called parallel talk, linguistically mapping, simply talking about what the child's interested in. You're being a sportscaster, you're giving them the play-by-play, expanding what the child has said. So the child says something, expand it by adding a clause because complex sentences are so important. And you also want to recast, where you take what the child says and you change it grammatically to model a different grammatical form. These are tried and true methods that have been researched time and time again when the parent is working with the child in these Google Slides decks, for instance, my membership. What we want them to do is we want them to go ahead and talk about what the child's doing. We want them to go ahead and expand on the child's utterances. We want them to go ahead and show the child's utterances in a different grammatical form. All of the things we would do within a natural play interaction, we're doing within this digital interaction. The same strategies apply. That is strategy number 3. Strategy number 4 is to make sure it's meaningful. When they looked at alphabet knowledge, they found if you had like the alphabet books where it's like, this is the A book, and you go alligator and you're anteater, and you're going through all these A words, that is not as effective as teaching letters, as having the letters embedded into the book. For instance, this week in our movement activity, we're doing Pete the Cat. In Pete the Cat, you have pop when the buttons pop off. P-O-P. Of course, I pointed out P-O-P spells pop. Now, that is when you're making the letters meaningful within a storybook interaction. That is going to result in better alphabet knowledge than doing like a flashcard method, but yet it's on a digital screen. So you want to make your activities meaningful and think about how you can incorporate multiple activities. For instance, I do blending activities within my Google Slides stacks, and you're blending the letters together to create words. They're building that alphabet knowledge. They're also building that blending. They're also building that working memory. It's all connected in that letter knowledge, and it's all coming together. You're not just working on one discrete skill. When you create educationally rich activities, you are getting gains across multiple domains. So the same thing that's true in real life is true in digital. You want to think about that educational richness and using the child's time not on one discrete skill, but on multiple skills simultaneously. The last one, number 5, is to coach the families and educators. And a lot of this, first and foremost, has to do with education of the benefits of using the digital. When we add this digital component, a lot of people are like, oh no, screen time, stop the music, horrible. It's really important to explain to them that the research shows that adding this digital component actually improves language and literacy gains. So when it comes to adding the digital, I'm very, very judicious about use of flashy sounds, sound effects, anything that doesn't serve a purpose. It's just distraction. And it's also stimulating the amygdala. I call getting it the children's attention on the cheap. I don't do any of that. So instead, we have Google Slide Stacks. The icons slowly move and they engage the child, and it gives the parent time to provide the expansions, to model the more complex language, to provide those explanations, to use those complex senses that I'm cuckoo crazy about. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see the children being like seeing flashes of bright lights that stimulate the fight, flight, freeze amygdala brain to get their attention. We don't need to get their attention on the cheap. They're getting their attention from that quality interaction, the fact that it's not a slideshow that's going on its own, but it's a slideshow that's manipulated by the parent, and that it's educationally rich activities that's going to benefit the child in multiple ways. When I look at these 5 techniques, I just want you to try 1 or 2 or 3. Maybe you're not doing all 5, but keep this in mind. The litmus test is this something that I would do in real life? And if the activity is not something you would do in real life, then scratch it. Take it out of your Google Slides deck. Take it out of your home practice. It's not up to par. Okay. If it's something that you would do in real life, it belongs in the Google Slides deck. What do we want to teach parents and what do we want to teach teachers? We want to teach teachers and parents the research behind what works and what doesn't work. And we want to let them know, hey, this is something that is a game changer if we incorporate intelligently language and literacy activities using digital means. And this is how it's done. The research indicates that if the parents and the teachers begin, you're going to get greater gains with the digital media. Buy-in matters. Let them know the research. Share with them this source that's at the bottom of the show notes so that they know I can use digital media, I can incorporate it, I can get greater gains. I'm just going to do it intelligently. And doing it intelligently is doing what works in the real world. And doing that when you combine the digital media to the picture, when you add digital media to the picture. So I want you to do what you do best and take all of this information, roll up your sleeves, and make the world a better place, one child at a time. You are always going to be first. Thank you so much for joining me at the drawing board.